こだ。さっさと入れ。
I'm scared. Dad, protect me.
疑いが晴れればすぐに釈放してもらえるんだよな。
疑いが晴れればな。
我々は罪人ではありません。相応の処遇をお願いします。
それはお前たちが身の証を立ててからの話だ。
Kondo and Omura were each pulled into separate rooms, and the guard coldly yanked me into my own. I am scared about what is about to happen because no other route has had something like this, so I'm scared. I wondered how intensely the other two were being interrogated, and I shook with anxiety. If either of them stuttered through an answer, or if their true identities were successfully ascertained, it would spell disaster for all of us, and I clasped my hands tightly in prayer for our safety. It's now nighttime. My hopes quickly waned as our time in captivity turned from hours into days. It became clear that, contrary to what we were told, they had no intentions of releasing us. I was permitted no communication with the outside world, and hadn't even spoken to Kondo-san or Nomura. Guilt swallowed me for having ruined the whole plan. How was Hijikata-san and Souma? Were they alive? As I waxed in contemplation, commotion echoed from outside of my cell. The guards shouted out and no answer came. Instead, I heard a heated brawl of sorts. Then... Swift punches were thrown, and one body had slammed against the ground. Okay, well, to be fair, I don't know where this is taking place, inside or outside, but I was about to yell, like, this is the place where you use the word floor instead of ground. I held my breath, gently sliding open the door to take a peek at what had happened.
Yukimura-senpai, 無事だったんですね。
Boy, did you just infiltrate? Souma! Thank you, Souma. I had a feeling that you'd come back for us. I've faith in you the whole time.
信じてたって。俺をですか?
Of course, even if it had taken a little while, I somehow knew that it would be you who saved us. I think this is the first time we made him blush. Is something wrong? Your cheeks are red.
いえ、何でもありません。気にしないでください。
Are you sure? I could have sworn that Souma was blushing, but... Perhaps captivity was making me delusional, and the dimness of the prison was deceiving.
俺、副長や松本先生から除名嘆願の手紙を預かってきたんです。
Really? So Kondo-san will be...
はい。これさえあればきっとお助けすることができるはずです。野村はどこにいるかわかりますか？まずはあいつを助け出しましょう。
To tell you the truth, I have no clue. I haven't seen either of them, but it should be nearby.
わかりました。それじゃあ行きましょうか。
Oh god. This is new. Souma and I snuck around, poking our heads through various doors until we eventually found Nomura's room, nestled in a corner on the other side of the hall.
やれやれ。一時はどうなることかと思ったぜ。旗本だって名乗ったのに、
奴ら手荒な真似をしやがって。
大声を出すな。兵が駆けつけてきたら面倒なことになるだろ
そうだった。
う。野村、局長はどこに囚われてるかわかるか？
確か向こうの部屋だったはずだぜ。
Okay, see, now I'm getting ideas for my own character for this series, and I'm learning. I'm glad this scene is in here. All of us tiptoed as quietly as we could, moving in a formation to avoid detection from any patrollers. Nomura's guess proved correct, and we slid open the door to find a bruised Kondo-san sitting in a cell. No, Dad!
相馬くん、野村くん、それに雪村くんも。もしや俺を助けるために来たのか？
Oh, I have a bad feeling this isn't gonna go as smoothly as I hope it would.
はい。敵が駆けつけてこないうちに急いでここを出ましょう。
As we scuttled out of the room, Souma handed Kondo the clemency petitions, only for Kondo-san to shake his head after reading them.
せっかく来てくれたのに申し訳ないが、君たちと共に行くわけにはいかん。どうやら俺が新選組の近藤だとバレているらしくてな。ちょうど君たちをどうやって逃がそうかと考えていたところだ。
Kondo-san, no!
そんな、局長！
すまない。俺はこのままここに残り、近藤勇として堂々と戦議を受けるつもりだよ。これまで自分がしてきたことに何ら恥ずかしいことはないからな。
考え直してください。
Kondo-san was stern and showed no desire to falter.
こうしてここに忍んでくるため、君は何度羅刹の力を使ったんだね。
それは。
俺はもう若い大使たちが俺のために死ぬところなど見たくないんだ。
Kondo-san murmured, and his eyes felt weighty. Weighty? Weighty with an earnest kind of gloom. I realized immediately that nothing we said could change his mind, and melancholia crept from the pit of my stomach.
相馬君、これを都市に届けてくれ。
You know what I haven't used that I really should be using? Yes. I really should be using this for this moment, but I keep forgetting they exist. And it's a really weird position for my hand. But now I'm sad. Kondo-san walked to a katana rack sitting on a desk in the corner of the room, lifting the bottom sword to hand to Souma.
これは。
井上新海、誠を改めると書くんだ。
Shinkai Inoue. Shinkai Inoue, a sword passed from Kondo-san to Souma as a symbol of the Shinsengumi's rebirth.
新選組の再起を願って手に入れた刀なんだが、俺にはもうこの刀は重いからな。
Souma glared at the blade dubiously, conflicted as to whether or not he should accept the katana, but he chomped on his lower lip and grabbed the blade from Kondo-san with both of his hands.
真の武士は都市がきっと引き継いでくれるはずだ。君たちだけでもここから逃げなさい。決して死に急ぐんじゃないぞ。
Kindness stripped from Kondo-san's tender, hushed words. Taking all of them in without crying was nearly impossible, but I did my best not to make a scene.
相馬くん、一つ約束してくれるか。羅刹の力はもう二度と使わないと。
それは。
Souma hesitated to answer Kondo-san, keeping his eyes fixed to the floor for a brief moment. Then he lifted his head and answered resolutely.
申し訳ありません。その約束はできません。もし鬼や羅刹、そして羅刹と化した幹が襲ってきたら、生身の肉体では勝てませんから。
そうか。
Kondo-san frowned gloomily, but he nodded in respect to Souma, which I had taken as a gesture of understanding.
君たちはそろそろ行きなさい。もうすぐ見回りがここに来るかもしれん。
局長。
Nomura was on the cusp of saying something, but
行くぞ、野村。
だけどよ。いいのかよ、お前。
いいから行くぞ。
Oh, I see. Souma snapped back at Nomura sharply under his breath, and the two both turned to face Kondo-san before bowing deeply.
二人とも元気でな。雪村君のことをよろしく頼むよ。
Kondo-san turned an affectionate gaze over at me. Even in the face of death, he looked out for me. Kondo-san. A deluge of tears was welling up behind my eyes, and I felt speechless. I can't thank you enough for all of your hospitality throughout these past 4 years. I spoke the first thing that came to mind, but Kondo-san smiled all the same and bowed his head. With that, we left Kondo-san and successfully snuck out of the building. I'd nearly forgotten what the wind felt like against my cheeks. Kondo-san. Imagining what cruel fate awaited Kondo-san at the hand of our enemies shattered me to pieces.
行きましょう。江戸の町はすでに新政府軍に抑えられています。急いで脱出しなければまた捕まってしまう。
I was heavy with remorse for willingly leaving Kondo-san behind, but none of us could afford to stay here any longer. As we broke into a sprint, I was trying to shed all of my guilt along these forsaken streets. I later learned we were being kept in a place in Edo, known as Itabashi, and we were traveling to the town's outskirts to seclude ourselves in my childhood home. According to Souma, Hichikata-san had found safe refuge in Aizu and was plotting his next course of action. On one particular day, I ran some errands in town and returned to a heated conversation at home.
くそ、どうすりゃいいんだよ。どこの関所も全部新政府軍の奴らが厳重に守ってやがるし。
Sekisho. Formal toll stations utilized by the shogunate to collect tax revenue, inspect travelers, and provide strategic military locations. So it's the word I'm looking for is escaping me. It's a checkpoint.
このままじゃ副長たちに追いつくなんて夢のまた夢じゃねえか。
あ、雪村先輩、お帰りなさい。敵兵に怪しまれずに済みましたか。
Soma and Nomura often spent several hours of each day deliberating an appropriate course of action to take ourselves safely towards Aizu, but I stared at Soma, shivering in silence as he stood up and slowly approached me.
何かあったんですか?
While I was out to buy produce, someone had been doing public announcements in the marketplace, and I bought a woodblock tile to bring back home. Kondo-san is... No! We're at this part already! Suffering. I'm suffering. I stopped myself from finishing. They immediately picked up on my strange behavior and snatched the woodblock from my hand before reading it. My hands flew over my mouth in shock. Both Nomura and Soma scanned the woodblock. It read, "Infamous chief of the Shinsengumi, Isami Kondo, has been beheaded at the Itabashi execution grounds." A concise, stoic description of a terrible tragedy. Both of them were stone-faced, standing at a loss for words as the news sank in.
なんだよ、斬首って。嘘だろ。だって局長は。どういうことだよ。おかしいじゃねえか。局長は大名になったはずなのに、どうして腹すら詰めさせてもらえねえんだよ。
My first time of learning this in particular, this event, was with Yamazaki. And then it kicked in fuller because right after I did Saitos, and I'm like, and this still hurts. Doesn't matter how many times, it will always hurt. The woodblock had other unfortunate news. As if a decapitation were humiliating enough, his head was to be displayed in Kyo at the Sanjo Ohashi as a public declaration of his death. For 5 strong years, the Shinsengumi committed themselves to keeping Kyo's citizens safe.
敵は我々が今日でしてきたことをそこまで貶めたいんですか?
I don't remember when I cried. No, it's not like that. Anyway, a group called the Shogi Company was the last stalwart of the shogunate interest in Edo, and they were holed up in Ueno, but the Imperial Army is currently storming Ueno as we speak. Edo is now under total control of the Imperial Army, and they're tightening the city's security.
急いで江戸を脱出しなければ取り返しがつかないことになりますね。ですが、江戸の関所は敵によって封鎖されてますから。
We all fell silent, contemplating our predicament. We witnessed the sadistic treatment suffered at the hands of Imperials firsthand. They were ruthless in sniffing out any signs of shogunate loyalty in Edo. Under these circumstances, how could we ever expect to escape Edo, if not be forced to survive the bleak reality of Imperial occupation?
二人とも落ち込んでたってしょうがねえだろ。探せば警備が薄いところの一つや二つ絶対あるに決まってるじゃねえか。やる前から諦めちまってどうするんだよ。
そうだな。何より俺たちにはしなきゃならないことがある。
Nomura is our rock. Enough said. I instinctively looked over at the sword that had been intended for Hijikata-san from Kondo-san. It was up to us to transfer Kondo-san's blessing. We owed both Kondo-san and Hijikata-san that and more, and our minds were finally made up. With this newfound resolve, Souma grabbed the sword from off the desk and tied it to the band around his waist, and we gathered our things.